Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're located. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Winnie. I'm the head of missions outreach at NUS College in Singapore. And it's a rainy day right here, actually thunderstorm right outside my window. And so I don't know where you are, what's the weather like, but thanks so much for being here. So today is the third webinar of our whole series for entire year, and today's focus is on academics. So I've invited a couple of guests here with us. We've got the Vice Dean of Academics Affairs, Prof. Loy, with us on screen. And then we have got two faculty members here, Dr. Edmund Low and Dr. Carissa Fu. And of course, on screen, you also see my two student ambassador, Lavanya and Elvis. Both are our NUSC Waseda program, double degree program. So NUS College is the honors college of NUS, and is also the first honors college in the entire of Singapore. So our college is actually fully integrated into the larger NUS ecosystem. And in short, we actually take about 6 to 7% of each year's undergrad cohort, which means the year one cohort that comes in August. And a total of, we are actually compatible with about 61 majors across NUS. And so I'd like to show you how it works. Next screen, please. So basically, you can see on your screen, there's a long yellow portion segment that runs through year one and year four. That stands for your faculty major. So for example, if you're pursuing a degree from CDE, an engineering degree, or you're pursuing a Bachelor of Science in biology, so you will run over 4 years. So if you're a student of ours, then bring your attention to the two, like the blue colors. The blue portion, the light blue and the dark blue, will run over 4 years, and that is where NUS College curriculum starts and ends. All right. So these two portions, when you add together, it will fulfill your graduation requirement from NUS to be awarded with your NUS degree. And then next, so I'd like to show you what are the 61 majors that is compatible with us. So as you can see from the screen, we have the College of Humanities and Sciences, Engineering and Design, Computer, Law, Music, and Business School. So these are the, should you be majoring in any of these, you can apply to be our student. And then next, we're going to move on to here. So once again, the emphasis is that we are compatible with 61 majors, and within our college, we are also a faculty. As you can see, we have 31 nationalities, and our students came from about 210 schools worldwide. So there is a 2 years mandatory residential component that you have to complete. And the first year is the common year. That first year is the required, you will need to spend your first year one, staying with us on campus, and the second year can be fulfilled anytime thereafter. So next, please. So our objectives here are we want you to be a problem solver, critical thinker, and positive change maker. And so how do we do it? We do NUS College curriculum actually enhances your NUS degree through 3 components: the formal curriculum, experiential learning, and community. We've already touched on experiential learning last month on our global pathways, and today our main focus is on common curriculum. So with that, I'm going to pass my time over to Prof. Loy. Thank you very much.
All right, good to see everyone here. Can you all hear me? And is the screen okay? Yeah, okay, thanks. All right, so just again, a reminder, just like what Winnie said, there are actually different components to how we intend to achieve our aims in NUS College, right? And the formal curriculum is only one part of it. And I understand that you have already heard, many of you will have heard a different talk about experiential learning, but today we are focusing on, in a sense, the much more conventional stuff, the core of the mission here, which is the formal part of the curriculum, okay? And at the core of it, what we're trying to do is to provide you with a curated interdisciplinary common curriculum, something that will bring you beyond your major, something that complements the aims of the rest of NUS education, with a special emphasis on helping you become broad-minded in being able to think about, think from a world perspective, a global perspective. And the point of this, of course, is really to help foster in you the ability and the desire to be positive change makers, right? So let me go straight into the curriculum itself, but in order for me to do that, I should explain something, right? You saw a chart just now from Winnie about how, as you're pursuing your degree in NUS over 4 years, you're also doing not just your own major, but also doing what she calls the blue part in NUS College. So one very obvious question that a lot of students will immediately ask is, am I doing extra things by being in NUS College? And I want to make sure that we understand what's going on here. Now, this is what it will look like if you are a regular NUS student, not an NUS College student, just a regular NUS student, using the College of Humanities and Sciences as an example. So perhaps psychology or physics or chemistry or social work or philosophy or history. Now, what's going to happen is that over the course of the 4 years, you will be doing your major studies, and the major defines your degree. So you don't get to graduate as a psychology degree holder if you don't major in psychology. That's an example. The major will take typically about 38 to 40% of your overall time in NUS over 4 years. Okay. But at the same time, especially in the earlier years, you are expected to read what we call faculty common curriculum and general education courses in NUS. And this is kind of required because it provides the foundational training and making sure that all our students across NUS have a common set of dispositions that fulfill our larger mission as an education institution, right? And then finally, NUS has this very special thing called the unrestricted electives, and almost 1/3 of your curriculum time in the 4 years is kind of up to you. It's up to you how you want to fill it. That's why it's called unrestricted, right? You can park a second major in here, you can park a couple of minors, you can take random courses. Now, let me just repeat the point, right? Even if you're not an NUS College student, you're just a regular NUS student, you're still doing all these things, right? What happens if you're an NUS College student is that we will take over a portion of your common curriculum and the unrestricted electives. So in a manner of speaking, you're not doing extra. You're reading the same 160 units, about 40 courses over the 4 years. You're just reading different courses. What are your fellow classmates from the main faculty and who are not NUS College students, when they're reading the faculty common curriculum, you are doing our version of it. Perhaps even with Dr. Carissa Fu, or perhaps with Dr. M. Low and others as well. Okay. Now let's zoom in a little bit on the red part. So what is inside the NUS College curriculum itself? And here I need to go on to the next slide. There are 4 components to this. That whole red thing, there are 4 different things in there. The first one is what we call the critical competencies. These are courses that ensures that all of you have foundational abilities. These are general purpose abilities that we kind of need you to have going forward. And they're very useful things that you can use in elsewhere also, right? So academic writing, be able to write in a very clear and structured and rigorous way. And I'll say a bit more about that. Reasoning with data, right? Everyone's got to have that basic data analytics. And Dr. Emma Low, in fact, comes from that pillar. Understanding the social world is a social inquiry class. We want all our students to have the to be armed with the concepts to be able to do social inquiry. And by the way, this is not because we think that they're social science students. All our students are expected to do this because we want them to have that capability, and then computational problem solving as well. So the joke, not really a joke because I'm quite serious about it. The critical competencies exist so that, as far as Pop is concerned, all my lit students don't just do poetry, they can code, and all my coders are not scared of poetry also. So that's part of the point, okay? Now, the poetry thing brings me to the second component, which is the global orientation, which is courses where we hope to expand your horizon, your intellectual horizon, your way of thinking about the world through different lenses, right? Later on, Dr. Carissa Fu will say a lot more, I believe, about global narratives, right? So one of the 3 is global narratives, the other one is social thought, and the third one is science and society. Then the third one, the yellow color one on the top right, are the making connections electives. Every year, we run about 60 to 80 of these for you to choose from, and you only need 6 in all to fulfill the NUS College requirement, right? So there are a lot of things to choose from. They are humanities and social science types, they are STEM types, that even creative. I'll say a bit more about that later. And then finally, the last piece of the puzzle, which is kind of in the formal curriculum, but in a way not managed by the straightforward formal curriculum, is the impact experience project. And it really is more of experiential learning. So you see the 4 major pieces in our curriculum that makes up that portion of your time in NUS, the 4 years, if you are one of our students. Let me say a little bit more about one of the classes that I mentioned called Thinking with Writing. I did say that I expect all our students to have gone through this, and to be able to write academically, write with clarity, rigor, write with a clear understanding of what they're doing, right? And the way we structure this is there are different topics that you can choose from because these are all boutique classes. There is no general class called writing. No, there's a class on cosmopolitanism and global citizenship. There's a class on equity and education. There's another class on human nature, another one on psych. You only need to do one. The whole point is you get an interesting topic. The prof is going to use the topic as the mechanism, as the platform to train academic writing, right? So that's a unique thing one of the unique things we do around here, where we deliberately mash up the writing part with a topic, right? But nonetheless, these are pretty hardcore writing courses. Okay, just some comments from students who have taken these kinds of classes. You can read them on your own. I'm not sure whether we're sending the slides, but the students actually do kind of take this class very seriously because it's the class where you only have 12 persons in the seminar. That's how intense it's going to be, as you might imagine. Okay. Now let me say a bit about another class or so, and this one comes from the Making Connections electives. So as I mentioned just now, there are three kinds of such Making Connections electives. There are the humanities and social science type interdisciplinary classes. They are the STEM type interdisciplinary classes, but they're also creative classes. Let me quickly mention two of them, just as an example. But as I said, we run about 60 to 80 of these every year, so it's really hard to choose because they're all very interesting. So this one is a very popular class. It's under STEM, under sciences. It's called Biodiversity and Natural History in Singapore. The person teaching this has a following. Students take this class and they actually become like almost like a little alumni community of their own. And they'll talk about the insects they have seen. And every year when Yichuan teaches this class, when it's time to collect insects, the whole building is a buzz with people texting each other about how they found this insect over on this which floor. And then who wants a stick insect? I got one here. So this is really a fascinating class. And nowadays he's been bringing students to do field work in St. John's Island and elsewhere as well. Very, very interesting class, right? Just an example of this is an art student talking about how he really enjoyed this class. Okay, the person teaching it is actually someone working at the Lee Kong Chian Natural History Museum. Okay, second example, this is a creative class. This is a creative practice class. And this is the kind of class where it's not about academic content anymore. It's about learning a skill and reflecting upon that skill. It's about being able to, for instance, do choreography and dance, being able to, do a documentary film, being able to do photography. And so this particular example is dance narratives. It's about dance and choreography, right? Some of the students who took it, who shared their experiences about it. So just to give you a sense, this is two only, as I said, we run 60 to 80 of these every year. So it's quite impossible for me to go through all of them, but all of them are interesting interdisciplinary classes. Okay. So this brings me back to the overall curriculum. So as I said, that those four components of our formal curriculum sit inside that big red quadrant, which is inside your overall NUS degree. Okay. Now, and you'll be doing it, of course, across 4 years, as Winnie already mentioned. And normally we ask the students to spread out, the foundational courses, the impact experience project, the Making Connections electives across the 4 years, so that it doesn't become a burden to them, so that they can kind of spread out the learning and spread out the experience as well. Okay. And as Winnie already mentioned, NUS College is compatible with 60 over different majors across NUS. And how does that work? Well, in some cases, it's pretty straightforward because the partner faculty's curriculum already matches up with us quite easily. Their common curriculum is already easily replaced by ours. In some other cases, very clear example would be law, where the professional requirements of the major is very big and has special features to it. Then they have already previously negotiated a special package such that law students in NUS College don't read necessarily the full spread of all the NUS College courses that we expect regular NUS College students to read, but it's a one where certain things are counted in a slightly different way, right? So the long and short of this is, because we are fully fitting in with the NUS ecosystem, don't worry, we got your backs covered. No one is doing extra, so to speak, right? So everything has been prearranged to make sure that the thing fits together within the 4 years. Okay, so that's all I have to say. And again, just a reminder, the formal curriculum is only one small piece of the overall puzzle. It's a very important piece for us. It kind of defines us as a college. Without it, there isn't a college, right? But it's not the only thing. In fact, I would say in one way, is one of those things that make us unique as an honors college, and yet at the same time, it's also not one of those things because the learning experience outside the classroom is just as important as well. Okay, passing my time back to Winnie and the other speakers. Thank you.
Hello, hi. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, cool. You might be able to hear the lightning and thunder in the background, but just ignore that. That's just part of being in the tropics. So my name is Carissa Fu, and I'm the coordinator for Global Narratives, as you can see here. So one of the first things I ask students in our first class is, what does global narratives mean? And global really means around the world. It's about the where. Narratives is about how things are told, what is being told, and the form and the why do these stories need to be told. So Global Narratives is one of 3 global orientation courses. You might have heard from Prof. Loy, who mentioned how that's part of the common curriculum where you have the global orientation pillars. So Global Narratives fits as one of the 3. It's a course that's typically subscribed in the first or second year of your academic journey. That's also the plan recommended when you're enrolled into NUS College. So we are a teaching team of humanists, meaning we have expertise in the humanities. So some of us are from art history, from the classics. We have film and literature scholars among us. We also have philosophers, and we have art practitioners. So people who might be teaching creative electives, as Prof. Loy mentioned in the previous slide as well. You might have a poet who's teaching global narratives as well. So we are not a literature class. That's a common misconception, but as soon as students enter, you realize, oh, it's actually a really broad class about orienting us globally in terms of text, whether that be visual text, written text. So it is a reading course, primarily. It's designed to develop literacy, whether that be in media literacy or visual literacy, as well as tapping and developing our interpretive skills. And I'll say more about that later. It's a cross and multi-genre course that introduces students to an array of reading materials. So we begin with different genres in text, with poetry, the short story, the verse, and then we move into performance and drama. We watch dramas as well. So some colleagues are screening K-dramas, some are doing more contemporary dramas that you can find in probably Western ones as well. And we would have students go to the museums to read visual artistic text as well. That's just an overview of what global narratives is. Some of our objectives for the course include, we want to develop close reading skills and a meta-awareness of written and visual forms. And we get students to really pay attention to what they're looking at. So one of the first questions we ask is, what do you think of the text? What do you think, what are some of the observations you have made about the text that seem a bit strange, that you're curious about? So we're not asking, why do you think this is written like that? Or what do you think the author is trying to say? These are important questions, but they're not the first questions that we ask, because in global narratives, we really want students to be able to attend to your own personal opinions first, and let's try to frame that in critical ways as the course goes on. So articulating observations and ideas are central to this course, and we have more formal ways in which these observations and ideas may be articulated. So, an overview of the assessment would include short writing exercises, presentation, longer essays, and even creative ways of expressing your ideas. A bit more about that in a bit. We also want students to develop sensitive and well-articulated interpretations of text, as well as appreciate the historical context and broader cultural significance of each text that we're reading. So in global narratives, we run through different texts that were written, some were written maybe a few centuries ago to very contemporary works. So the idea is we introduce text and we explore these different worlds, cultural milieux through these different texts that we have on the syllabus. In order to achieve these objectives, we have mainly 3 that I've articulated here, 3 kinds of learning modes. So one is, we try to ensure that our course allows for sustained engagement. So it's not just coming to class, read the text, go home, forget about it. We have in-class participation, asynchronous forums, discussion, office-hour consults, where students can sort of keep thinking and percolating the ideas that they have read in class. We also have different ways to invite students to practice some of the reading skills that they have. So you might be learning how to read, say, poetry, but the same close reading skills can be applied to reading a piece of artwork from the museum. it's a creative classroom environment, and I'll show you some photos. So one of the things that we're committed to, and I think this relates to the ethos of the college that has to do with breaking open the classroom. Yes, there are special programs where students really go out of Singapore to break the classroom, but also breaking the classroom where we have activities, teaching strategies that involve getting students to sort of stand up, go out, interact with the environment, to encourage immersion and imagination. So texts that are written, as I've said, a few centuries ago, how do we make them relevant for students today? I'll show you some photos here. So these are, I think, quite endearing to look at. So in one of our first assessments, because it's a close reading course, as I've mentioned, the assessment is a close reading assessment. So we get students to take a passage that they like to localize the text for their close reading practice. And one of the things we get them to do is to just use a pen to highlight, to underline things that are of interest to you. We don't need criticality at the start, right? Because we really want them to be attuned to, what lines are really strange to me? What am I curious about? So we get them to take inventory of their curiosity by annotating. So as you can see here, some students, they're really, you have intense annotations through the different assignments. So this is just one of them. I spoke earlier about some of the creative strategies that we use in terms of our pedagogy. Here you have students so one of the texts that we have on course is a graphic novel. So some of the exercise that we have in class is to get students to understand what makes the graphic novel form so peculiar, so important in bringing out certain themes that this particular text wishes to bring out. And we get students to practice that in order for them to understand the ideas behind the graphic novel. It's also to get them to practice some of the insights that they have gleaned from reading the graphic novel. On my top right, you have students who are enacting a scene from possibly Shakespeare or a readaptation of their own version of Shakespeare. And at the bottom right there, on my screen at least, that's a museum excursion that we get students to take, because it's not just about perusing a painting that has been digitally archived, but it's important to be in the space and to look at the textures of whatever that's painted on the canvas, so that interactivity, the engagement with the work is also what we're interested in. So I mentioned earlier that we try to get students to creatively interpret or creatively express their observations and their thoughts about the text and sort of readapt them into a medium that they enjoy. So this is from a student's work. So the task was take an idea in class that you have found inspiring and transform it or transpose what you have read into a medium that you are interested in. So this particular student, she's very interested in doodling and illustrating, and she's never really found that she could use those skills in an academic setting. I mean, it's always something that she does by the side or as a hobby. But here, she managed to use those skills. So the text in question here is Charlie Chan Hock Chai. Some of you might have read it. And she was very interested in transforming a superhero that was inspired by Charlie Chan Hock Chai to a cause or a social mission that she had been interested in. So in this case, it was the unsung hero of the migrant worker, and the student then proceeded to create a hero out of this cricket man. And it's not just drawing for fun, right? As you can see here on the left of my screen, is the student's reflection on why she had chosen to develop this character of the cricket man. And so she says, cricket man is a migrant construction worker by day, vigilante superhero, and he prowls the streets and back alleys of red light districts. So really just taking something that she's interested in and combining that with some of the social insights that she has been having and forming through the different months that she has been sort of attuning to the news. And this is another one. So I mentioned that we are a team of humanists and we have philosophers among us. So some of the things that we read include Plato and Zhuangzi's philosophies. And this student, he was trying to articulate the difference between the two philosophies that he was reading, and in order to transpose it into a medium that he cares about. So he's very interested in physical training and going to the gym. So he thought, Zhuangzi's philosophy and Plato's philosophy via Socrates, how do I make sense of them? So to him, he thought what would be most natural was to create workout regimes. So he had plotted one based on what he thought Socrates might do and plotted one based on what Zhuangzi might do. So really innovative, and you can really see how students take century-old philosophies or ideas and make them relevant for themselves. And that's sort of the applicatory aspect of ideas and theory that we really want global narratives as a classroom or as a course to do, or to enable students that creative freedom to interpret in a very critical way. So finally, some of the continuities and connections that we hope students leave the class with is to develop a certain reflectiveness, right? They're reflective about things they read. It's a reading course, and to be very honest and blatant, we are constantly reading things, whether we are reading texts, reading emails, reading a Netflix drama, that is reading. So we want students to be able to be reflective about the things they read and consume, and to be self-aware about how the materials can actually influence the lens in which they approach the world or to approach people. We hope giving students the experience of breaking the classroom open will also encourage them to be open and to pause, to consider different perspectives, sometimes perspectives that are conflicting. So to sort of pause before you judge, to be open to differences and to be open to sometimes critical responses to one's own opinion. And finally, it's an independent but also relational thinking, because we're after all social beings and we're relational beings. So students who are able to cross-pollinate across different mediums. GLN is a course that teaches students to read across different mediums, different theories, encouraging them to make connections between their own life and the things that they read. So as much as it's independent critical thinking, it's also to be able to think relationally. So this is my portion of Global Narratives. I hope I gave you a good enough sense of what Global Narratives offers to the first year or sometimes second year students. And I can pass the time over to Edmund, who will be sharing about reasoning with data. So this is Prof. Edmund.
Okay, afternoon everyone. So my section will be on reasoning with data. I would like to start off this section with just a quick question for everyone, just to get our brain juices flowing right after lunch. Maybe we can use, if I may, I'd like to requisition the Q&A function for my question. Yeah. What do these four people have in common? Yeah. Maybe you can type your answer into the Q&A.
Not
Good
bad.
answer from Jihi, leadership, from Johan and Nitin. They're all from France.
One of them sent from the chat group also, symbols of inspiration or guidance.
Symbols of inspiration or guidance. Yeah. Very good. All are correct answers, but perhaps the answer that I was looking for here is indeed that they are all French. Yeah. So starting from the top left, we have Kylian Mbappe, who is probably France's most famous footballer. And then going in an anti-clockwise direction, we have Christine Lagarde, who currently heads the European Central Bank. Apologies, I'm probably horribly mangling all of these French names here. Yeah, and we have Charles de Gaulle, who led France through World War II, and finally Emmanuel Macron, the current president of France. But of course, the most famous French person of them all, arguably, is Napoleon, who at one time nearly conquered the whole of Europe. So this was the height of the French Empire in 1812, 1813. And who knows, had Napoleon kept on conquering and conquering, perhaps we'd all be speaking French right now. But of course he didn't. And what probably stopped Napoleon was his invasion of Russia in 1812, shown here in this data visualization by the French civil engineer Menard, created in 1869. So what this visualization shows is the number of men that Napoleon had in his army at any one time during his Russian campaign, represented by the width of the line. Yeah? So the thicker the line, the more men that Napoleon had in his army. So we kind of drift our attention over to the left-hand side of the visualization here to this thick red line. We see that he started off with a very sizable army, 400,000 plus strong, at the Russian-Polish border. But this slowly dwindled through a series of skirmishes with the Russian army, such as at Smolensk and Gagarin. And also the Russian scorched earth policy. So as the Russian army was retreating, they were burning the land, preventing the French from foraging for food. And all of this, of course, took a toll on the French army, to the extent that only 100,000 of Napoleon's men reached Moscow. But reach Moscow they did, and so Napoleon was very happy. He thought that the Emperor of Russia at that time, Tsar Nicholas, would surrender. But of course, Tsar Nicholas had already skipped town. And if we recall what we know about Russian geography, well, there was a lot of places that Tsar Nicholas could have retreated to. Faced with a dwindling and demoralized army, Napoleon had no choice but to turn back. And if we notice from the black line at the bottom, the remnants of his army were further decimated by an especially harsh Russian winter during their retreat. What especially took their toll were the river crossings, such as across the Berezina River over here, where we noticed that the width of the line significantly reduced, to the extent that only 10,000 of Napoleon's men trickled back to Poland. Now, this data visualization, as what we might or might not have realized, shows an incredible 6 types of data. It shows the number of men that Napoleon had in his army at any time, represented by the width of the line. It shows the direction of their advance, red towards Moscow, black back from Moscow. It shows their location in 2-dimensional space, X and Y. So this is in effect a map showing the relative coordinates of the army. And if we notice from the line chart at the bottom here, it also tracks the inexorably plummeting temperatures at various dates during the army's retreat to underscore the harshness of the winter that eliminated most of the remnants of Napoleon's men. Now, this data visualization tells a story. It tells the story that was the debacle of Napoleon's Russian campaign, perhaps far more effectively than just looking at the raw numbers ever could. Now, one of my colleagues remarked that actually this visualization looks like a blood vessel. And I don't think it is coincidental to underscore the carnage that was Napoleon's Russian invasion. In order to craft an effective data story, though, as its name suggests, right, data story, there are 2 essential components. So there's the story component, where you require strong language skills, such as what you will hone in the thinking with writing pillar if you join NUS College, and also in the creative writing courses that Prof. Carissa is teaching. But there's also the data component as well, where you need to thoughtfully work with data to extract insights. As this headline from The Economist from back in 2017 proclaims, data is the world's most valuable resource. And in reasoning with data that's taken in your first year of study with NUS College, we'll look at how to reason quantitatively with data. Specifically, I look at it as 2 sides of the same coin, that at the end, each student should be empowered to go out and be able to actively engage with data as the resource that it is to answer questions that are of interest to us. And on the other hand, as passive, quote unquote, consumers of quantitative information on a daily basis, we should be able to cast a critical eye over all of this data that is before us. When we reason with data, we can probably break down the steps into the following, right? Starting top left again, but going this time in the clockwise direction, we should be able to frame our questions in order to describe our problem of interest. We should then be able to collect the necessary data, subsequently to explore the data that we've collected, and to extract the insights from our data finally to answer said question that we had framed. All of which will be covered in the course. We aim to provide a curricular space for us to reflect and apply what we've learned to important questions. For instance, critically assessing Nutri-Grade labels. So are drinks that are labeled A really healthy for us? To assess this hypothesis, we will experience data collection ourselves. In a lot of quantitative courses, we only talk about data collection without actually going out and collecting the data. But that experience of personally collecting data can be invaluable. And we do that by measuring sugar content in sweetened beverages right in our class. Because a lot of what we will do with regards to data collection at NUS is collecting data through surveys, we will also introduce some basic concepts of survey design, looking at ways to select respondents and what measurement errors to look out for. Once we have our data collected, what do? Well, we want to get to know our data a little bit better, right? So that this can inform our subsequent decision of how to analyze our data. In the same way that all of us are here today because we would like to explore NUS College a little bit better before signing off the 4 best years of our lives to NUSC, right? We want to get to know a little bit more about what it's like. Are the profs that are here today Goyok sellers, or are we actually genuinely selling something that is worthwhile? And of course, right, all of us here do that by attending webinars, by looking at the NUS College website, by attending open house later. Yeah? And similarly, for data, we explore by using descriptive statistics and data visualization. So when do we use a particular form of averaging, the mean versus the median? When might we use a box plot versus a scatter plot? And finally, when it comes to extracting insights from data, oftentimes we perform statistical significance testing. But what does it really mean when we do a hypothesis test? So we'll run some fun simulations to gain an intuition. Along the way, we'll use some interesting data sets, some that we collect ourselves, some curated by others, such as the sweetened beverage data set that I mentioned before. Another data set that we'll collect ourselves, the ruler drop test to assess our own neurological health, and the chicken rice data set that, of course, will hopefully be extremely relevant and interesting to us in a local Singapore context. Ultimately, we hope to build a data intuition in all of our students by the end of the course. Because whenever we talk about quantitative analysis, we tend to associate it with complex methods. That's certainly not the case, right? Back of the envelope calculations are as important as well. So for example, in the chicken rice data set, we use a sample of 100 stalls. But how do we actually assess if this is an adequate sample or not? So to answer this question and more, join us at NUS College. So join us if you're curious and you want to learn more. And join us if you're not afraid to take more classes to do so, because we are going to be taking more classes than our NUS peers that don't necessarily translate into more academic credits, but which will benefit us further down the line. Right? There is value in learning for the sake of learning alone, right? In the same way that, Fleming discovered penicillin without really looking for penicillin. Undirected learning and research can oftentimes, in their own organic way, be most impactful. So join us if you're up for an academic challenge. Yeah, so thanks everyone. I guess we are open to taking any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we've got our Vice Dean, Vice Dean of Academic Affairs, Prof. Loy, bringing him back on screen, Clarissa, as well as Edmund, our 2 faculties, that's NUS College faculty. So if you do have questions, do keep sending them in. Just on that point about sample classes, I've also posted on the chat that we will be offering free sample classes, which is about an hour long during the open house, which will be sometime in late February to early March. The dates are to be confirmed. So do keep an eye on our events page, which I've also put in the chat earlier. There are certain links, so do check them out. So with the students on screen, okay, so now you've heard from the professors. I think we like to gather some thoughts from the students. Elvis is a year 3 student, while Lavanya is a year 2. So they've taken some of the modules, depending on the year that they're in. So how do you translate that, Elvis and Lavanya, into How does it help you? And also maybe from the perspective from, say, a JC student, high school student, how do you transit into this train of thoughts that's quite different from high school days? Over to two of you, please.
Okay, I think I'll start first then. So I'm actually, just to like give some background, I'm an international student from India. So I think coming into NUS College and like taking a lot of these classes, one particular class which I could talk about is, for example, understanding the social world, which is a common curriculum, one of the foundation courses. And I think one thing was that I was very curious about Singapore as well. And I think it did focus a bit on Singapore as well. And I think taking that example, initially when I came to Singapore, I heard about a lot of maybe social constructs or a lot of other things, but I was very clueless. And my professor was actually very helpful as well. And through this course, we did a lot of site visits. We watched documentaries and all of that. And I think now I understand how Singapore works in a much better way. So that is one thing. And I think another thing is that the NUS College classes are very much seminar style, I think. And this allowed me to directly engage with the professors on different thoughts, different topics, which was also very, very useful. And finally, I think I would just like to also talk about how it helped me in my major as well, which is computer science. So I think a lot of people have asked me that how does NUS College match with your major, which is purely STEM? And I just want to clear the misconception that NUS College doesn't actually complement your STEM degree or anything of that sort. Because first of all, I think writing or thinking is just as important in any major. And even as a computer science student, I've seen that when I've taken a lot of classes, like for example, global narratives or any other NUS college class, I see that I have developed this depth of thought, which I otherwise may not have. And it has allowed me to explore much more beyond my comfort zone, step out. And I think, yes, I think it's great.
Lovely. Elvis?
Yeah, so I'm Elvis. I'm a year 3 econ student on the NUS Waseda double degree. So I'm actually in Tokyo right now. Yeah, so I think building on what Lavanya has mentioned earlier, I think what I really appreciate about the NUS College curriculum, it's really the opportunity to challenge what you know and to try something that's out of your own comfort zone. So for me, I've always thought of myself as a more like humanities and social sciences kind of person, but then again, like I've always shunned away from like poetry and like narratives because I always found it very difficult. But I think when I took global narratives, I think that really challenged me and got me to think a lot about the kind of things that I see in every day. Could just be like a simple TikTok. How do you make sense of why certain things are arranged in that sense, right? So yeah, so I think that's really one aspect. Learning how to appreciate the world around you, and how to better understand and how to appreciate these kind of things. I think for me, coming from a JC background, being like in the Singapore educational system since young, I think the way that I look at things has always been a very fixed perspective, even for example towards Singapore. And I think what I really appreciated about NUS College curriculum is it challenges your thinking, and it really challenged my perspective when I hear from my classmates who come from very different backgrounds from me. I hear their perspectives and I ask myself, oh, actually, is that a valid perspective and as well? And I think that is and I think that just really broadens my thought process and my horizons as well. Yeah, and like even now when I'm in like doing my econs courses or even now in Waseda University in Japan, I think what I really took away from my time in NUS College so far, it's really the ability to think critically. For example, in econs, when we look at research papers, how do you make sense of why the authors wrote their paper in a certain way? Are they omitting something? Are they trying to push you towards a certain outcome? And I think I'm able to better appreciate that. Yeah.
Thanks so much. So as you can see that Elvis and Lavanya, they are representative of the STEM and the humanities students. So from two separate streams, and they're doing this interdisciplinary program with us. And I can sense that, okay, you may feel a bit difficult, or there may be some fear to entering the other side of the world, but it doesn't seem that issue, you know. I think I sense that appreciation of touching the other part of the spectrum. So from that, I'd like to continue with one more question, actually, and this will be to our professors who are actually in touch with the students from both sides. You know, how are they different? You know, our NUS College student to someone who actually is just a STEM person or a humanities person. I'm pretty sure you have spoken or taught students of such. Any from our three profs?
Okay. So the humanities students write better? No, it's not even true. It's not even true. In the end, it turns out that it's much more varied than people realize. Yes, you know, on a normal day, is you know, if the humanities students comes back with a really well written paper and all that, or the STEM student comes back with a really well done data thing, most of us are, yeah, sure. But actually, the reverse happens all the time. Enough times for us to perk up and say that I guess we're doing something. Okay, just to say that, yeah.
I think I could build on Prof. Loy's point. I find students that I encounter throughout my past few semesters are really students who, I mean, yes, I say students who are open to new thoughts and differing perspectives, but really students who are very willing to discover more about themselves and discover more about themselves in surprising ways. So as Prof. Loy has already mentioned, some of the most creative students that I've met are actually students who have surprised themselves because they're in computer science, for example. If you think, I mean, I like to say this, people think the creative writers are really the ones who are, you know, humanists and people who have been reading poetry, but really when you're coding, you're using a different language. And when you maneuver language in those ways, you are very creative as well. It's just that you've never thought of yourself as being creative. So I see NUS College's classrooms as spaces where students can be safe and willing to surprise themselves.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the classroom itself, it's a safe environment and also very enriching, given that we have about, you know, like we been talking in the last 40 minutes, that we have 61 majors that's compatible with us. So you actually get this different kinds of people under different training in your class of up to 25 maximum, and writing class is only like 12 students in the class, so you get that attention from your prof within the class time. And of course, staying on campus also, and having some profs staying on campus with us, that extends that learning experience, that journey outside class time. And of course, I think I'm pretty sure our profs are also very open to having consult, speaking outside that classroom door, right? So yeah, so I think we do have time for maybe one or two questions. We're just looking at the Q&A function. So if you do have any questions, do send them in. And I know that there are people who ask about interviews and all. Maybe I could share a little bit because the portal is opening soon, and I've got a slide that shows the different qualifications and the application timeline. And so if we could have that on screen. So we are opening very soon. That's for the international qualifications. That is actually the 20th of this month. And depending on what qualifications you're coming in with, if you're with the Indonesian, the Vietnamese, as well as the Malaysian, that will end on 5th of February. Otherwise, any other qualifications not listed here will be closing on 26th of February. And then, of course, I know that there are quite a number of you who will be applying with your IB scores, IB qualification that will start on the 4th of December. The poly and the poly will start on the 18th of December. NUS High School on the 4th of December. Then A-levels is not open at this point. We don't have a date, but it will be updated soon, but expected about a week before you get your results. Okay, so just a reminder for those of you with IB, you will have to apply with a predicted score, and then we will come with a decision when your actual results is out. Okay, and yeah, I'm still looking for questions, and maybe we can touch on the next screen, and that is on scholarships. Okay, sorry. Yes, scholarships. We do have scholarships, and for NUS College, as us being a faculty, we have our very own scholarships as well. And these are by invitation. We will actually write to you. So do make sure that you check your emails after you have submitted your application. And so you will be applying with the same application form, NUS application form. And then there will come to a segment of 2.1 that it asks, would you like to apply with NUS College? And if you do, there will be written assignments for you. Submit that. We will read your essays. And if you're shortlisted, we will invite you to an interview. So interviews can happen at any time from March to all the way to July, depending on your qualifications. All right. So then, yes, so I would like to, there's this question, can medicine students do NUSC? Prof. Loy, your question.
The answer is kind of a yes, but please make sure how it works, right? So you will only be considered if you have put down one of the majors in NUS that is actually compatible with NUS College while you are applying to medicine or so, because you can rank your choices. So for instance, medicine is your first choice, then second choice is CHS, perhaps thinking that you'll do biology or something like that. Now, what happens is that because if you do that, then we will schedule you for interview. Okay, only under that condition will you even be considered. So what basically happens is that after we do all the interviews, you do all the NUSC selection, we will have a list of people that we would like to accept, we would like to offer. But out of this list, there will be some portion of them that we cannot offer because actually medicine wants you, and medicine, since you put medicine as your first choice, you're going to medicine first. So some portion of that list we will evaluate and take them in for NUSC experience. NUSC experience is not the full 14 courses. You only need to do 3 courses, but we expect you to be part of the community here, right? And you will be staying with us for 2 years on campus as well. Now, one piece of advice, if you're even thinking about this, is that you have to want this honors college experience, because you need to understand that medicine is a very, very packed and rigorous curriculum of its own. So our medicine students, they do, have to strategize a bit together with our seniors, when's the best time to take what classes and all that. And they do work quite hard, just to fulfill those 3 classes. So you need to be aware that that's what you're getting yourself into. But I welcome you because we have always had very successful NUS College medicine students on the program here. Okay.
Yeah, so besides the medicine student, I think the other one that we want to talk about, and we actually did already touch on last month, is the double degree, which Elvis is on, one of them, which is a WASEDA program, a 5-year program. And of course, we do have the Sion's Poll. So that one I'd like to bring your attention to, although this is not quite related to today's webinar, is that for Sion's Poll, you have to apply at this point in time. There's a different application process, different selection process as well, but you will need to do that, make that decision right now as you apply with NUS and as well as NUS College. Whereas WASEDA, you will make that decision in year 1. And that. So I do have a one final question here. It says that the written assessment, the additional essays for applicants need to write in. Oh, yes. Sorry. This is Ji Kang. Yes, it is separate. So there are additional essays to be written. And so there is also one more question. Okay. Oh, no, it's just disappeared. I thought Prof. Loy would like to answer.
I answered.
You've answered already, right? Okay. So with that, I think if we like all of us to jump in with our very last statement, I don't see any more questions here. Any word of advice from our faculty members, then followed by our students?
No, let the students go first.
Okay, students go first.
I can go first since Lavanya went first just now. I think just be very clear of why you would like to apply for NUS College if you are considering. The academic requirement will be quite I think the intensity will be quite different from what you experience in the regular NUS curriculum, but I think it's a very enjoyable one. But I think for it to be enjoyable, you need to have a very clear sense of motivation why you are doing this. Yeah, so I think that's all from me.
Yes, I think I'll just build up on that. I think when you're joining NUS College, also maybe come in with an open mind, because you will see so many different perspectives here, so many different people from different backgrounds, and it is a very, very enriching experience. I think I myself I've like met so many people, so many professors as well, learned so much from them. So I think one way to get the best out of NUS College is to just come in with an open mind and just experience everything it has to offer.
And the professors? You're all on mute, Prof.
I wanted them to go first. Emin, go first. You see, unmute yourself already.
Okay, I think I'll go first. Just kind of to tap on to what Elvis is saying. I mean, we all look forward to seeing everyone at NUS College, but you know, like what Elvis has mentioned, you have to be clear on what you want, right, as a takeaway out of you know, NUS College. So you know, coming from the curriculum perspective, yeah, if you're you know, a student who is interested in seeing how things connect across different disciplines, right? To see how we might, you know, cross bridges between how something that you learn in your major might be related to what, you know, you might see elsewhere in, say, engineering or in, say, business. Then this is a platform, right? We offer a curricular space for us to build all of these bridges, right? To get more out of, you know, your education through such interdisciplinarity. Now, there's nothing wrong, of course, with, you know, being very specialized. And, you know, if, you know, you're a student who is more interested in asking, you know, disciplinary questions, then there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's value in building specific expertise. But, you know, probably in such a case, NUS College might not be able to, you know, fulfill, you know, your desires in this case. Yeah. So if you're the sort who are interested, are intellectually curious, not just in your own discipline, but you know, are also interested in you know, how what you've learned connect with, you know, other different disciplines as well, then we look forward very much to seeing you here.
Thank you. Thank you. And Clarissa?
So I think you need to be a learner or a person who's interested in being empowered, because at NUS College you will not be spoon-fed information. You will not be enrolled into a course that gives you 14 weeks of just lectures and throwing information at you. That's not going to happen. We require students to be very actively engaged, to participate within class, asynchronously outside class. So you must be interested in an education or an approach to learning that empowers you, such that you do the work of making those connections, you bridge between ideas and application. Yeah, and want to be seated amongst peers who do the same. Because after all, there's a residential component and you're exchanging ideas all the time within and outside the classrooms.
Fantastic. So that sums up the kind of students that we are seeing and we have already in our community. And actually we'll be speaking a little bit more about that next month. And so for my closing, actually, I've got something to show you, ladies and gentlemen, on the screen. And that is the upcoming webinars, the events. So you can definitely keep an eye on these. And these are also on our events page. I have already listed earlier. The blue ones are already passed. And then, so like I mentioned, the next coming up one, the coming up one webinar is on Student Life, which is on 14th of December. And then we have the missions tips in January. And then those who are here in Singapore, we will have a meet and greet with CHS, the College of Humanities and Sciences. It's on the 25th of January, 9 a.m. in the morning. We are opening registration very soon. And on this this day, we do have sample classes, actually, a few, not too many, but we will be offering you to sit into our class. And then, of course, if you have more questions after this, today is kind of quiet. If you do have more questions, we have a page with a whole list of questions on our website. So go to our website and go through those. That will give you a very clear idea. And if not, do go to the end of the page. There's a contact us. Do just click on it and send to admissions. And that's where we will try and answer your questions. And any questions that's related to admissions into NUS, we will redirect you to office admissions. And then, of course, we have a mailing list. If you're still not on our mailing list, do scan this so you can join us and we can keep you updated of all our upcoming events. And of course, we do have a full deck of slides, not the prof slides, but we do have the full deck on NUS College slides that's available. So you can actually read more about us, find out more about us, and if this is a good fit. So with that, I do like to remind you again to keep an eye on us, our website, our events, our FAQ, and of course, do join us again next time. Until then, you have a good weekend. I'll see you again next month.